It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. Bruce Gibson is with us. He is the chair of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. And you are in the middle of a fascinating debate over how and whether to create a water district. I know it seems archaic, but it's fascinating what's happening right now. Tell us about what's going on.
Well, as you know, the Paso Robles groundwater basin is in crisis.
Right.
We're seeing wells drop precipitously, and our board has been taking what action it can to address the situation. What we realize, though, is that we really need a specialized governance structure that fits this basin.
Why?
Well, you know, groundwater is a tough subject, and,
Yes.
and it's one that's not well regulated by state statute
At
at
all.
this point.
At
not
all,
not
really.
much.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of talk now about trying to improve,
Right.
Or improve might be the wrong word in some people's minds, but to exercise more authority at the state level. The governor has made it very clear, though. He wants local jurisdictions to manage their local groundwater resources, or the state will step in. And he's put in almost $2 million in his budget for 10 more positions at the state water board should the locals not get the job done.
Or the court could step in.
And that's the other, but that's the traditional path, is that when people have disputes over groundwater rights and the amount of water they can pump, it is typically ended up in court. That's a long and expensive process.
So where we stand today is Assemblymember Cacho Ashajian, who represents SLO County, has proposed a bill which will create a water district for that area. But what's so interesting about it, I had no idea. I am a lawyer. I thought I knew a lot about constitutional law, but apparently there is a Supreme Court case which says that for the purposes of water districts, the concept of one person, one vote is not mandatory.
In terms of electing the board. So this water district, and as Assemblyman Ashajian's bill crafts it, would have a 9-member board. And it's not simply that all the registered voters in whatever boundaries of the district would go to the polls and elect those. That's because it's a water district.
Explain, be as specific
Right.
as possible, because
So-
intuitively it doesn't feel
Right.
like that makes sense.
Right. Well, maybe a little bit of history. Water districts typically were formed to benefit agricultural interests, and the benefit and the cost would be visited upon the ag interest by the size of their acreage. So typically it had been bigger parcels are going to pay more, will have more influence. Now, as we adapt that to the modern world, we could see, especially in Paso Robles, that model wouldn't necessarily fit Paso Robles, because you have a lot of rural residents that have a lot invested in their homes and have a lot of worry about their available water. So two groups, one which is mostly connected with the bigger ag interests, and one who's mostly connected with smaller ag interests and rural residents, came together and actually forged a compromise in how they think the board should be structured. 9 members, 1/3 of them would be elected by the registered voters that live within the boundaries of the district.
One person, one vote.
The other 6 would be elected from 3 classes of large landowners, medium landowners, and small landowners. And the thought is that gives the full range of representation on the interests in that basin, yet no one group ends up with a controlling interest.
But what's interesting is, you know, I could say, well, I have a bigger piece of land than my neighbor, and if you're going to put a bond on the ballot, I'm going to have to pay more of my property taxes than he is.
Right, and so what you're aiming at there then is the question of how the activities of the district get financed. That is very reasonably conducted on an acreage basis, because possibly water supplies would be greater and of more benefit to large acreages, so they would end up paying more. But we're really talking about 3 things. One,
which you're going to talk about when we come back.
Absolutely.
This is a fascinating conversation. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. Okay, Supervisor, so what are the 3 things that you just mentioned?
Well, we have the question of forming the district, and that a vote is conducted to form the district. We then, if the district is formed, we then elect a board.
Right.
That's a second kind of vote that the residents of the district would conduct. And then the third kind of vote is the question of financing the activities of the district, whether it's the day-to-day operations or whether it's some project to bring more water into the district. And it used to be that all 3 of those were conducted on the same basis for a certain kind of water district. You vote 1 acre per vote. You govern 1 acre per
Right.
vote, and you finance 1 acre per vote. But that changes now with post-Prop 13
Right.
and post-Proposition 218.
Right.
The formation vote, in my view at least, is rather the less important of the three. We believe, and I think most people believe, we need a water district. It's a customized governance structure to take care of a very specific problem.
Right.
That is water supply and demand. And the Supreme Court has held that the governance structure that's being proposed is constitutional. So what we've found in case histories of these kinds of water basins, going back into the 40s in the Los Angeles area,
Right.
is that the successful governance of this common resource, water, is best conducted by a self-organized and self-governing entity created by and managed by the parties who benefit from the resource and are responsible for the resource.
What's interesting about what you just described, I know recently you traveled to Sacramento.
Did.
And you testified before the Assembly Water Committee.
Yes.
Your colleague Debbie Arnold also traveled to Sacramento. Now, I think it's fair to say that Debbie Arnold, her position, she would probably agree, comes from a right-of-center perspective. She was testifying against the bill, and next to her were the Teamsters
Yes.
and the Sierra Club,
Yes.
which are left-of-center perspectives. You were
Yes.
testifying for the bill, and next to you were two ag interests,
Right.
which tend to be right-of-center.
Right.
So, this whole debate has really created strange bedfellows.
Well, it's, I guess the way I look at it is the compromise forged by the two groups, pro-water equity and a group called PRAGS, forges a very sensible middle road. And we have the far left and the far right, if you want to take that simple view of it, in opposition. This is practical governance, the way I see it. It is one that I think is fair, is certainly as fair as we can make it for all the interests.
I gotta ask you, it's gotta be tricky as the chair of the Board of Supervisors when you're speaking to your friends in Cayucas or even Nipomo, which isn't impacted per se, that we're gonna create a structure whereby landowners are gonna get more votes than just regular residents.
Well, we have some precedents in terms of assessing. For instance, the Los Osos wastewater project was assessed. Single-family houses paid one assessment, nearly $25,000, you'll remember.
Right. Oh, yes.
Mobile home park parcels paid a different assessment, and apartments paid a different assessment, and that was all based on, and vacant properties paid no assessment. It was all based on the benefit that was going to be acquired by the individual parcels. So there's precedent for weighting the vote in one way or another because the effects are going to be weighted in the outcome.
So let's look forward.
Yes.
The bill did make it out of the Assembly Committee.
A committee on local government.
Thank you for correcting me. 6-1 with 2 abstentions.
Yes.
Now what happens?
So now it goes to the floor of the Assembly.
Okay.
And toward the end of this coming month, the Assembly has to take action on all the bills that originated in the Assembly.
And this was one.
And this was one of them.
Right.
And so then from there it goes to the Senate side, where there will be committee hearings, and then eventually, if it makes it that far, to the floor of the Senate, then to the governor's desk.
And so let's talk about the Senate.
Yeah.
The representative in the Senate for this county is Bill Monning,
Correct.
who has a huge swath of the Central Coast.
From here to southern city of San Jose, absolutely.
And so, do we know where he is on this issue?
I haven't spoken directly with him recently, but he identified a number of issues that he thought needed resolution. We know that there's an extensive legislative process, and as we work through the committee process and the floor vote, and then over to the Senate side, we're addressing those. And one of them is the exact powers that this district would have. One is the boundaries this district would have. We have received an opinion from the Legislative Council, the lawyers that work for the legislature, that this proposed governance structure is constitutional. Some very specific Supreme Court cases make it clear that this will fly constitutionally. So now we have to craft the details in a way that we can set it up for our local agency formation commission.
It's fascinating.
There are many more steps and many more minutes of time to talk about it.
Please do come back and when we can discuss this issue. His name is Bruce Gibson. He is the chair of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis County. I'm Brad Pomerantz. It's Charter California Edition.
In what year did California create a system to apportion surface water rights through permitting processes? 1888, 1914, 1925, or 1933? According to California's Department of Water Resources, in 1914, California developed its system to apportion surface water rights through permitting.
It's Charter California edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz, and we are joined by Debbie Arnold. She is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County, of course, on the Central Coast. I want to hold this map up, if I may. It's from the U.S. Drought Monitor. And what you can see if you look at this map is that in Central California, it's dark, kind of magenta. The darker the red, the more the drought. And San Luis Obispo County is right in the middle of that dark magenta. Talk to us about that on the ground, Supervisor Arnold. What are you hearing, feeling, and seeing on the Central Coast?
Well, our County Board of Supervisors 2 months ago, I believe now, had declared a drought emergency here in the county, enabling us to acquire assistance from the state. Right. But more importantly, what I thought one of the key features of declaring the drought emergency was the fact that it kind of loosens up some of the rules and regulations. Right. So that county employees can act as disaster relief workers and if necessary and those kinds of things. And makes it a little easier to address.
What's so frightening about this map, I want to hold it up one more time. The magenta area, that is the salad bowl of America, including San Luis Obispo County. I mean, this is where 50% of all vegetables are grown for the entire nation. And if you look at certain crops, it could be upwards of 75, 80%, even 90%. San Luis County, grapes, wine. Yes. Talk to us about the impacts to agriculture based upon this drought.
I think the one commodity that can't depend then on groundwater to raise their commodity would be our beef cattle producers. We have a lot of that. A cattle on any given year might be the third most valuable commodity and a big part of our economy here in San Luis Obispo County. No rain, no grass, no feed on the ground. Hay gets very expensive, and we've seen maybe a record number of cattle being sold out of the county.
That's exactly right. I mean, we have reports saying that livestock producers are being forced to sell their animals.
That's right.
They have to reduce their herds.
That's right.
And that means something.
It does, because especially in our county, we have many cattle ranchers that raise calves. The cows, it's the genetics, it's the acclimation to the area, and it's hard to replace your cow herd once you have to disperse it.
Talk to us about grapes, and I ask you not only as a supervisor, but as someone whose family works in the wine industry.
Right, and the irrigated agriculture this year in most areas of the county, I know we hear that well levels are dropping. Right. That is a normal consequence of a drought cycle as severe as what we're experiencing. But for the most part, I think
You're doing all right?
We're doing all right. And one thing, we could debate it, but this county has never been dependent on state water or imported water to water crops or provide drinking water. So in most areas of our county.
Which is a relief, because we know the State Water Project all but shut down.
Correct.
I mean, I guess it's now giving 5% of what it normally gives.
Correct. And in many areas of the state, they depend solely on that water.
Right.
So we still have, most areas of our grape producing regions do have groundwater available. A lot of the formidable weather forecasters are predicting a wet year.
Right,
let it be. Months away.
Right,
exactly.
let it be. What about some of your sister counties in the area? Have you heard Monterey, Fresno? How are they doing? Do you have a sense?
I think the entire state, different parts of the state, of course, and like I say, I think it just is depending on what your water source is.
When we come back, I want to talk about fire, because with dryness, there's an increase in fire danger. I want to get a sense from you where we are on that. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back with Supervisor Debbie Arnold. So, Supervisor Arnold, let's talk about the fire danger, because, it goes without saying, if it's dry, there's a risk of fire.
Absolutely.
Quantify for us.
And I'll talk about it.
Yeah, please do.
Here in this county specific, the one thing, we had a little bit of late rain which did start some grass. Prior to that, we all watched the hills were brown and the grass was short.
It's interesting you say that. As we were coming through San Luis, you started to see the mustard colors, which are just magnificent.
It's gorgeous right now.
Yeah.
But all that green that we're seeing now will turn brown, and it was just enough rain to kind of start the grass. That combined with the lack of moisture content in the brushy hills and even in the grasslands from the 4 years of drought that we've had is really a volatile mix. Because if a fire starts, our firefighters, it'll spread quickly. We really have volatile fuel.
What is being done in preparation of that? I understand maybe more engines will be added, planes as well. What can you tell us?
That's right. I don't know if the fire season ever ended or if
right. Well stated.
Yeah,
well stated.
But our Cal Fire, they're just a wonderful asset. They're prepared. They're ready. They still have smiles on their faces now when I see them, and they're ready to take care of this, knowing that the potential for a very severe fire season is right in front of them.
If we can, I want to hold up another map, if I may, because it, I think, is instructive and it's very visual. We're looking at the county reservoir conditions, and again, this is one example of one county in California. The yellow, all the way to the top, is how high a reservoir can go. The red line that you see, that's an average. The blue is where we're at today. You don't have, a second grader can see we are not where we need to be, Supervisor Arnold.
That's right. But we are coming out of a long, some say a 500-year drought.
I have heard that. I have heard that.
Clearly on record, at least 150 years. So we do have, the county does have, those graphs show the reservoirs are down, and they are, as we would expect after this many years of low rainfall, but they are not to the point that we don't have the resources available to get through the summer.
We also can look at general numbers otherwise. Snowpack water content, 18%, precipitation levels, higher than I expected, 50%. Reservoir levels, 65%, these are statewide numbers. We just were talking about this fire danger, 90% increase. John, I'm going to hold this up if you can zoom in on it. It's a tighter map. It's the map of the state of California. It's not as easy to see. We'll try to roll in a tighter map in post-production, but you can get a sense. The blue is where it is, the yellow is where it can be.
Right.
So statewide, what's so interesting to me, Supervisor Arnold, is that if you look at Southern California, the blue is taking up the yellow. I thought Southern California was supposed to be the region that has the more difficult drought conditions, whereas Northern's supposed to have all the water.
Well, it a lot, as you know, when we're talking about water capacity, we send a lot of water in California. We send a lot of water from the north to the south.
Right.
But what's interesting about that rainfall, the 50% figure that you spoke about, rainfall is a funny thing, and as a cattle rancher, I've watched this.
Tell us.
It's about how rain falls. So if you got a little soft, misty rain every single day of the year, it would total. You'd have a high rainfall total, but that would be water that probably never ran off in the watershed. You would not fill your reservoirs. You need some stronger rains to get the runoff that fills your reservoirs and gives you, the surface storage that you need to have a supply. But a misty little small rain every day would grow the vegetation very well. So it was always, in the cattle business, you hope for both. You hope for those gully washers that will fill your reservoirs, but also the soft rains that where water doesn't.
What do the cattle need?
Both. They need the grass, and then of course we all need the water.
And what have we had this year?
This year, at the end of the season, the rain season, we had some pretty good rains there that came,
Not
strong.
misty?
I'd say average, and so we saw. I don't think though enough after the drought months to really make a difference to our water storage.
Any tips for what you and I can do?
Conserve, be aware. We have a few more months. I'm hoping we just have a few more months, and then they're talking about an El Nino.
El Nino, right. All the La Nina,
we'll be happy
El Nino.
we have that storage capacity under the ground, because if we get a lot of rain, it needs somewhere to go.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Right.
Her name is Debbie Arnold. She is a member of the Board of Supervisors in beautiful San Luis Obispo County. My name is Brad Pomeritz, and you're watching Charter California Edition.
As a result of the 2014 California drought, the federal government has declared how many counties primary natural disaster areas. 13, 18, 21, or 27. As early as January 2014, the federal government named 27 counties as primary natural disaster areas.
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz, and we are joined by Linda Seeley. She is a board member with San Luis Obispo Mothers for Peace. As you may know, recently an organization released a report. It was put out by the World Business Academy, which talked about Diablo Canyon. That report was quite damning and suggested that Diablo Canyon is unsafe for the residents of San Luis Obispo County. We sought the epidemiologist of the county to join us. She declined. So now we are joined today by Linda Seeley, and I thank you for joining us. We know that the San Onofre nuclear plant shut down as a result of some concerns, a release of radiation. What can you tell us about that and how it relates to Diablo?
Well, they had installed new steam generators at San Onofre, and the tubes, there are like 80,000 tubes inside of each steam generator, and the tubes were shaking because they had changed the design of the steam generators without getting permission to do that from the NRC, and they didn't function properly. And because of the shaking of the tubes, it was releasing radioactive steam.
And that NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, did come in.
Correct.
And gave them a whooping.
That's
and
right.
Now the owners of San Onofre have voluntarily shut down.
Because they realized how expensive it would be to replace their steam generators, which were only replaced 2 years ago, I think, at a cost of $800 million.
Right. So there is one nuclear plant left in California. That is Diablo Canyon.
That's right.
In San Luis Obispo County.
Yes.
It is the largest employer in the county,
That's
largest
correct.
property tax base in the county. And so it presents challenges for you, I'm sure,
Absolutely.
when your organization comes out and says we should shut down
That's
Diablo
right.
Canyon.
How dare we?
How dare you?
How dare we?
But
Yeah.
why is it, based upon the study, you believe that this power plant should be shut down?
Well, we don't believe the power plant should be shut down based upon this study.
Okay.
We have believed the power plant should be shut down for 32 years.
Okay.
We think it should not have been built in the first place.
Okay. But
this
the study adds fuel to the fire?
Adds fuel to the fire, absolutely. And we do not consider ourselves to be experts in epidemiology or public health, because we're not. And so our response, because our county health department absolutely blew this study off and said that it was, quote, junk science.
They did.
And they...
But before we talk about the county's response, tell us what the study did say, though.
Oh, it said that there was a discernible increase in breast cancer, thyroid cancer, melanoma, and very low birth weight babies after the time that Diablo Canyon opened.
Low birth weight, child adolescent cancer mortality increases.
Oh, right.
High the county went from a relatively low cancer to a high cancer county. Right. I mean, the report is a little scary.
It's very troubling. So what we say to the county health department is, okay, maybe you don't like this study. Maybe you don't like or approve of the way it was done. Fine. Then how about doing another one? Because the county, we asked them in 1975 to conduct a baseline study before the plant opened of radiation levels in this county, and they never responded to us. They did not do a study. This is the first time any study has been done about radiological releases from Diablo Canyon.
When we come back, I want to talk more about this and talk about the irony behind this study, in that most of the discussion recently around Diablo has focused on earthquake safety.
That's right.
And so it's quite ironic that this study has come out in the background of earthquake concerns. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back with Linda Seeley. So Linda, let's continue this conversation, because it is a fascinating one in light of the concerns that were being discussed with the Fukushima earthquake in Japan. Mm-hmm. There had been a move to create a grand study. The California Coastal Commission got involved. That kind of got put to a halt. Mm-hmm. And so talk to us about all the moving parts here.
Oh man, there are so many moving
Right.
parts. The issues around Diablo are, I would say, three serious issues. One is the seismic issues.
Right.
Diablo is built at the intersection of at least 13 earthquake faults. Two of those earthquake faults are major, the shoreline fault and the Hosgri fault.
And the Hosgri we knew about. The shoreline we just found,
That's right.
ironically speaking.
Exactly. And then other faults have been found behind the plant on land, not offshore, but that seem to intersect into the shoreline fault or with the shoreline fault. No, a former NRC, the resident inspector at Diablo Canyon, wrote an opinion in December of 2011 stating that with using his analysis of the newly discovered shoreline fault and these two other faults, San Luis Bay Fault and Los Osos Valley Fault, that if there were an earthquake involving the three of these at the same time, even though it were a lower level
On the Richter scale.
on the Richter scale, it could cause significant ground movement that could make the critical backup safety systems at Diablo Canyon not function. And he, interestingly, they say this had nothing to do with his report, but he was shortly after that transferred to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So,
Let me ask about the county.
okay,
Because the county did come out against the report, as you said, calling it junk science.
Right.
Fundamentally flawed.
Right.
The distinctions they made were that the study did not consider that San Luis County is older than other counties.
that's
is whiter
Right.
than other counties. Again, I'm not commenting.
Right.
I'm reporting back.
Right.
What are your thoughts on their response about it being an older and whiter county, and therefore we're going to see more cancers?
Right.
Because people of Anglo descent will have more melanomas,
Right.
and people who are older, just by definition,
Right.
will get more cancers.
Well, that's patently not true. The study was age adjusted,
okay.
and it was ethnically adjusted. Those are two false claims that the health department made. I have no knowledge of why they made those claims.
And I remind our viewers, we did invite the health department to
Right.
join us, and Ann McDowell, the epidemiologist for the health department, declined.
Right.
And so you're joining us today. So in light of the loggerheads that the organizations seem to be at, the county, Mothers for Peace,
Right.
the World Business Academy, where does a resident of the county go from here, of the Central Coast go from here?
What we are doing now, along with the World Business Academy, is calling for our state senators to launch an investigation in the Environmental and Public Works Committee.
Senator Bill Monning, I presume?
Senator Bill Monning and Senator
Fran Pavley?
no, from Santa Barbara,
Hannah Beth Jackson.
Hannah Beth Jackson.
Yes.
Right. And Hannah Beth is behind it, and we are speaking with Bill Monning today to try to get his
Acquiescence,
endorsement
right.
for this.
And what do you hope will happen?
Well, we hope that it will, we can shed more light, that perhaps if they can explore the report more thoroughly. If they don't like the report, maybe they'll commission another report that they consider to be more independent.
So what would you tell a resident today?
Right to your state senator.
But should we live in San Luis Obispo County? It is supposedly, one of the best places in the world to live.
Right, and it is one of the best
Right.
places to live because of the people. Diablo Canyon makes it a less safe place to live, and yet I live here, and I live here because I love it, because I call it home, and because I want to shut down Diablo Canyon because it's not safe for it to be there for all of these years, this aging, decrepit, old nuclear power plant at the edge of a huge ocean on 13 earthquake faults, leaking radiation every day.
Her name is Linda Seeley with San Luis Obispo Mothers for Peace. I'm Brad Pomeranz. It's Charter, California.